I heard a woman's voice to my left going, I'm not getting a pulse, I'm not getting a pulse. And with the same sense of reality with which I'm now speaking, I said, of course you're getting a pulse, otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you. But she kept going, so agitated. So I just gave up. And that was like a letting go. And I found myself in a completely different environment. I knew I wasn't alone, but I couldn't see much because I was surrounded by gray foggy material. I had a sense that I was waiting for something with the same confidence that I would with a ticket for an airplane or something. You know, I was waiting. There's no time that was involved and no words, so good luck to me conveying what I'm about to tell you. The wait was over when underneath me, just blasted with this incredible energy, a light that I don't have words for. And I've told this story plenty. I've written about it, and I'm not tearing up because, well, I am from the memory, but also it's so frustrating because it was just love. It was all love, and it was so powerful. If you could measure my goosebumps now, all these years later, it never goes away, this feeling. And this light went out in all directions under me and then around me, and I had probably no eyeballs, but I was seeing just fine. And everywhere I looked, it was going out to eternity. And at the same time, in a way I wish I could explain, but it was layering endlessly on itself as well. And I had this knowledge that I was given that I was actually beholding eternity itself, and eternity was this light. And so the endlessly going out in all directions without a beginning and an end was what we would call linear time. But I think, I don't know, who am I, but I think that layering were dimensions, and they were also endless. And within each of those layers, there was existence and more love, and it was all parallel to itself and yet endless. And it was so bright. It was so bright. Didn't hurt to see it, but there's nothing I've personally come across that is as bright as this. But I have had a glimpse now of the energy, and I found it behind Niagara Falls. You can go behind the falls, and this water just coming down in sheets, and the energy from all that pounding, falling water was the closest thing to my near-death experience I've ever found on Earth. But the water didn't love me. This light loved me, knew me personally, and in the presence of this light, I said, "Homie home." And I later learned from my parents that homie home, when I was learning language, is what I used to say when we'd been away from our house, and we're going back, and I recognized neighborhood features, and I would go, "Homie home, homie home." And for my parents, it was one of those bougie boo moments, and they remembered it. I have no memory of that. So I said, "Homie home." This light is what I call God. I'm more comfortable saying my creator, but there are no words. I have a complete absence of any kind of language. I don't even try. The language comes from my heart, and it speaks well. It's just that no one else can understand it. But this love was personal. And we communicated in a form of math and music, and I'm not skilled in either. When skeptics say, "Oh, you get what you expect," no. I wasn't expecting anything. And math and music was perfect communication. I asked questions any fool would ask God. I asked many questions. For instance, why are we here? And I was told pretty much we banged on the door for this life. Our souls, it sounds so philosophical, but our souls, or whatever you want to call it, insisted on being born. And that it was something we really wanted a lot. I asked about pain and suffering in my own way, and the answer was, sadly, that's the way back to God. I mean, we in our fleshly existence, without some stress, kind of forget where we're from, and then there was something about free will, and I'm not a theologian. This had nothing to do with religion. It had to do with life and love. But what I would most like to convey is that although I was asking, immensely profound questions, I thought, what I was getting back were, I was remembering. It wasn't new information. It was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. It was fantastic. And then the light told me that I had to go back. And the light being God to me should have been intimidating. It wasn't. I said no. And God said yes. And Kim said no. And it went back and forth like that. And I'm here to tell you, you can argue with God. God's going to win. But there was no problem. There was infinite patience on the part of my Creator as I insisted on not going back. But indeed, I was sent back. And then the darndest thing is that I missed my body by about 6 feet. So now I was in the odd predicament of being in the same position as my physical body, but about 6 feet away, and going, who's that? I mean, it meant nothing to me. The me that was me didn't even have a name, but it was the truest part of who I am, was no more in that body than looking at a piece of luggage. I appreciated the luggage. It was like a cute purse. I mean, but it wasn't me at all. And when I talk to people who are afraid of death or people who have lost a loved one, when they, the old saw about that's just a shell, it really is. It just was not me at all. And then I saw a man bend over me, and he put his mouth against mine. And that's how I got back into my body. It was through him. And that was another story in itself. To go through another person was interesting. But it was his compassion for me. I'm sure the physical contact helped, but it was his love for me. I just, in the form of this light, been with the greatest love of all. So of course, I was going to gravitate to anything reflecting that. And his compassion and his caring for me, even though he didn't know me, was what drew me back into my body. The problem was I didn't like being back in my body, and my consciousness was there, but it wasn't in a way that I could perceive anything. So I was miserable. It was cold and dank and scary and awful, so I called out to God again. Yay, God came back, not in the form of a light, but just this math and music. And I hate to diminish God, but it was like, all right, already, what do you want? I mean, it really felt like that, like, you again? I'm still begging to be with God, not to be sent back. And so God opened up this window-like thing on my right, and there was heaven, at least my heaven, pure and simple. It was beautiful, very intense, non-earthly colors. I'm sure you could find these colors on Earth, but not in the intensity and vividness, and there was light in all of it. There were blades of grass and small trees in the distance and this intensely blue sky, and it was all shades of light and love. And it was so beautiful. And so I was told that if I went through that window, though that was my border, there'd be no coming back. So I was out of there. And I thought I was all the way through, but not quite, I guess, when, again, God basically said, before you make that decision, let me show you something. And in a flash of light, that was an aspect of this light. Again, there were, I don't know how to explain it, but there was a place, and all I knew is that where mountains met water. Well, it wasn't Kansas. And I didn't choose that. I chose to go through this window. Again, felt like I was just about all the way through. Another aspect of this light flashed, like, you know, the old-fashioned cameras with, you know, I'm old enough where the bulbs would come out, you know, and everybody would be squinting. No squinting involved, but that bright and focused. And there were just like a gallery of people, like portraits, and they had very mundane labels, you know, next door neighbor, best friend, co-worker, nothing glamorous. And I was just given to know that if I chose to live, these are people that would have some significance. And again, I did not choose them. I chose heaven. And again, almost through the window, when another flash, and it showed me being of service. And I looked and went, in my brain, kind of like, cool, I was back. I made my choice. It was like, tricked. Phooey, you got me. So I consider that I was sent back to serve by God.